Hey everyone, good evening. Donna Nelson here. Welcome to episode 44, how to use reframing, how to use reframing as a way to save your sanity. So this is a process. I think it's a psychological theory that is used in business and therapy and really in coaching for sure, definitely in coaching. So, but this idea of reframing. So, what is it? Well, cognitive reframing, because that's what we're talking about, right? Reframing the way that we see things, the way we feel about things, the way we experience things. That's what this perspective is about. So, cognitive reframing is really about, it's not what happens to us, but it's how we frame what happens to us. Or maybe you've heard the expression, it's not what happens to you, but it's how you react to it, right? Well, cognitive reframing is a bit like that, except that this cognitive piece of it is our thinking, right? It's the thoughts that we embody that are based on our perspective. And our perspective is always filtered for everyone, right? And it's filtered because it is based on our values, our past experiences. It's based on our indoctrination, our core beliefs. It's influenced by the circles around us, right? Whether it's our family or our colleagues or our social circles or even social media. Our perspective gets, I'll say, distorted, through those things. And so because it's filtered based on these things and many more, when we start feeling like we're stuck or we're triggered about something or we have a situation that we can't move past, which are all reasons to use this concept of this process. I'm going to give you 5 steps to reframing so that you can keep moving forward and being productive, but also having more collaborative conversations, more cooperation. So whether it's at work or um, in a conversation with anyone, you're negotiating a contract, any of these things, right? Where there's kind of there's friction. And it could be friction between two people or it could be friction within you. So, as I was saying, so if you're feeling stuck and you can't get yourself moving because you're have some conditioning of these thoughts, right? These beliefs that are going on that are keeping you in this stuckness or a past situation, it could be something really terrible that has happened that you've gone through and now you're feeling like I can't move through this because there's still too much of that lingering or just an emotion. You can't shift yourself out of this negative emotion that you want to. So cognitive reframing is a really great process to help you move through that. And again, it's all situations in life have no inherent meaning other than the meaning we give it. And again, where does that meaning come from? It comes from the ideas around our beliefs, our experiences, the things that influence us, right? That kind of maybe the peer pressure or social influence. All of those things are what give that we create something has meaning. You've probably been in situations where, somebody says, "Oh my God, that was so horrible," or "That was a mean thing." And your frame of reference, if you have a really open, compassionate heart and you're always coming from love and seeing the good in others, you would probably justify an experience where someone else says, "Oh my gosh, that was so mean. They wouldn't hold the door for you. What a jerk." And you're like, "Hey, who knows what's going on in that person's life? I can get the door myself. I don't need someone to hold it for me. I didn't really think it was bad manners." Like, so you're already like seeing it from a different perspective because your filter is different. And this is why it's also, so there's 2 things here that I wanted to say. Having this capacity to quickly reframe is a reflection of our own self awareness and our ability to be agile. to have this flexibility mentally and emotionally. And the only way that we can do that without having like my 5 point list on you and referring to it every time you want to do some cognitive reframing to save your sanity, to not, maybe hurt someone or stay stuck in an emotion that keeps you unproductive or feeling in emotional pain or whatever, um, is through self-awareness. The more we know ourselves and understand ourselves and have this deep self discovery in understanding who we are, why we roll the way we do, um, is going to help us create these cognitive shifts more quickly. And in that, it helps us in our relation with others. So whether it's in with a business contract or with a client or with a family member, exploring new relationships, we're always in relation. And the more we are able to, again, be aware of ourselves and know what our own hangups are, our own limitations, the things that we're working on ourselves, the better we are at getting along with others, because we're able to shift quickly and adapt to see a situation in a more cooperative way. So cognitive reframing is a tool to help with that, if I haven't beat that to death already. So, um, so the main point about cognitive reframing is to get something in a more positive light, essentially. So let me tell you what the 5 things are. So I took this from someone else that where I was wanting more of a framework for reframing that was more of a guide. So I'm going to give you what I learned from them, and it's 5 steps. So the first one is looking at, so we want to assess what's going on. Why am I stuck? Why do I keep, ruminating? Why am I interpreting this situation and totally blowing it out of hand when I know it's not a big deal, but yet somehow I'm making it a big deal, or I can't move past it. So the first one is to get real. And that is getting an accurate description. And when I say get real, I mean like get real based on your reality of how you were interpreting that. Because again, real is different for all of us because it's only real based on the meaning we give it. So really, nothing is real, or everything is real, something like that. All right. Anyway, back to getting real. So number one is an accurate description of the event. What happened? So, and you have to write this down. You can't run this shit through your head, because by the time you get down to step 3, you're not seeing the sequence accurately sometimes, unless someone is guiding you. In coaching, we can do this, right? Because somebody's walking you through the next step, and you're not getting derailed and caught up on yourself with um, your thoughts and being triggered by your emotions that might be coming up. So write it down. Your brain loves you writing things down anyway. All right, so you're writing down a description of the event. You're giving the details, what really happened, and then you're attaching what meaning did you give it. So um, so you're getting real, then you're giving it meaning. So what were your beliefs, right, about what happened? And just write down a few of those beliefs. What caused the situation to happen? What did you think should have happened? Um, what did you believe maybe about others that were involved, or about yourself, right? Are you blaming yourself? Are you blaming others? Or whatever those things are, right? What are those beliefs? And then the third thing is the consequence, right? So the consequences are um, how you interpret. So what is the consequence of you having that belief? What is the consequence of maybe you feeling the way that you feel about that? So in other words, if you got angry at someone, uh, and then what is the consequence of your anger, right? So maybe you overreacted, or maybe you canceled a trip, or um, something, right? I don't know. I totally random here. Uh, but what was the consequence of your own reaction or own action, or your own sitting in the I'm not moving, right? If I'm feeling stuck, or I'm just sitting in this and stewing in this emotion, what is the consequence of that for you and for everyone else involved? You're just writing these things down, assessing. You're just assessing. This is an observational step to create awareness, because that's what's going to help you create the shifts, right? Because you're changing the filters, right? You're taking off this filter, taking off that filter, because there's a belief here and a distorted belief here. And so now you can see it a little differently because there's not these clouded filters. All right, so number 4 is dispute. So dispute is really challenge, right? So what dispute is about challenging your thoughts and your beliefs, which I guess is kind of what I was saying in the consequence as well, right? Like getting ahead of myself. So you're challenging whether or not what you think is true. You're challenging whether or not your feelings are accurate about the situation. So the reason that we do this is because it already is starting to open us up to see it differently, right? So if you've already done those first 3 steps and you get here to dispute, this is where I say oftentimes people are lying to themselves, right? So challenging these by saying something like, well, what is a more positive interpretation of that event or that experience you could think of, right? So how could I have seen it differently? Um, and when we start saying, how could we see it differently, right? Like some of this is how I did a lot of my healing around my parental issues, right? Not me parental issues, although was a lot there, but I'm talking about, like, how my mother raised me, or the things that I had carried for a long time, a lot of things around anger and disappointment, sadness and things like that, and reframing some of those things that I had in my mind forever, that were just, honestly, just, it was just so irrelevant anymore, right? And so I often, when I'm reframing something, I'm like, is this even relevant? Like, does this even really matter? Like, in the whole scope of things, how does this affect my life? Yes, that pissed me off. Yes, I didn't like it. But really, in the whole scope of things, does this really matter? So when we get to that reframe, to disputing, like, where's the level of importance here, and how could I see this differently? So, when I want to kind of finish the thought, because now you're all wondering, like, what happened? But just using as an example, of saying, oh, some of my childhood experiences, and where maybe, I haven't had an opinion, or there was an experience with, say, my mom and the way she raised me, and how, maybe for a long time I carried some anger around that one particular thing. So I could look at that and say, as an example, she did the best that she could, or she did as best she could with the resources that she had. She didn't know any better. And now, we have so much more knowledge, or, or she experienced a lot of trauma and just transferred it to me, because, she didn't have a good support system. Like, so that's what I mean about, this challenging and disputing, and how could we see it differently? And so, when we're dealing, whether it's in the workplace, and, you know, somebody drops a bomb on you, right? Or pushes too much work to you, or is just, you know, yelled at you over, something. And you're like, wow, like, really, all I do here, and this is like how I get treated, kind of thing. And so when we can come from, again, when we've done the inner work and we're certain about ourselves and we're clear on our own values, we can recover from these more quickly, because we can more quickly reframe things like that by saying, somebody is having a really bad day. wonder what's going on in their life, right? But we could not to give them permission. And you know what, when I first learned about this reframing, right, I was so black and white. There was none of this like gray shit, make it soft and fuzzy and all of that, like I believe now, right? Um, when I say it saved my sanity and it will yours too. So, when I used to be like extremely linear, very black and white, it was like right is right, wrong is wrong. And it's based on my filter because it was my experience and that makes it true. Well, that can keep one stuck and in pain for a long time. So I have found out. So learning, learning to see, but doing the inner work to coming from a more open heart, from more compassion, being able to expand our capacity to see things from other points of view instead of just in this, well, this is how I was raised, or this is how my family has always done it, or this is what I believe because this is the way I've learned in my education experience, whatever, right? Oh, this is what's always worked. Oh my God. So stop it. Stop it. It doesn't work that way. So to have mental flexibility, you've got to have this capacity to reframe. Okay, or maybe it's reframing will help you have this mental flexibility. All right, and then the fifth thing is effect. So you're going to, again, writing this down, right? The final effect should be a more accurate point of view, right? So maybe you would say, what's the new truth, right? So step 5 is what's a new reality that I could create about this? And once we reframe that, you can notice that you immediately feel better because you've come to a new understanding within yourself and you've released the stress around that situation, or the emotion that you've been carrying, right? Where you don't have to, and it's not about you taking all of the responsibility, right? I think what I was starting to say when I was like getting all crazy about my black and white and linear stuff was that, I used to have this belief that, if I see it from a different point of view, then I was letting someone get off the hook. I was excusing maybe what I thought was unacceptable behavior. And so it took me a long time to figure out that that's not true. And I have more peace as a result of it. So, so stop carrying around all the stuff and get yourself unstuck by doing these 5 steps so that you can see it differently and have a deeper understanding of yourself and why you are hanging out where you're hanging out, and get moving. All right, that is reframing. So I hope that you'll do it so that you can save your sanity as it has helped mine so many times. All right, have a good night. See you tomorrow.